Hello and welcome to another episode about Zendesk. Today we're going to be covering triggers. Now triggers are the backbone of your system. They work behind the scenes to make sure that tickets are routed the right direction. You can set up triggers for all sorts of different things, like if you want like a message to go out when your tickets first come in. This is kind of like where that happens, or if you want like a background process to occur. Triggers in some limited capacity can actually do that for you. So to get started, let's go ahead and find where triggers are. So you have to be loaded in as an admin when you log into your Zendesk. You come down to the cogwheel that says admin, click on it. Come down a couple of these different categories down to business rules. When you find business rules, click on triggers, and this will show you all the triggers that are currently set up in your system. Now you both have active and inactive triggers, as well as it'll tell you how many times the trigger fires, which is under usage, and it shows you the last 7 days, last time it was updated, which is right here, and the name of the trigger. Now let's go through a couple of the triggers that are already set up in your system when you first get a brand new Zendesk. The first one is notify requester of received request. The next one, notify requester of comment update, notify assignee of comment update, notify assignee of assignment, notify assignee of a reopened ticket, notify group of assignment, notify all agents of received requests. Now we're not going to go through all of these, but essentially these are the ones that allow a basic Zendesk to run. They allow for kind of that customer forward approach, where anytime that you receive a request, we'll send something back out. It will also let your agents know that there is a received request in the system. So to kind of get started on this tutorial, let's go ahead and take a look at one of these triggers. So in order to see what's actually going on the inside of a trigger, you have to click on it, and then you'll get this screen. This screen has a lot to it. We're going to take it slowly just so it'll help you learn a little bit better about what exactly a trigger does and what it is. So just kind of to start it off, this is the notify requester of received request. And what essentially that means is that when a person submits a ticket, the person who sent in the ticket gets something back that says, your ticket has been received and will be reviewed by our support staff. So you can see that right down here. Now, in order to get that to actually work, there are some conditions that need to be met. So this was one of the very first things that I learned when I was introduced to Zendesk, and it's a little confusing, but if explained in the right way, you can kind of get a grasp of it. So there are all conditions and there are meet any conditions. Now the all conditions are the absolutes. So these things absolutely have to happen in order for this trigger to fire. So in the instance of notify requester of received request, the all conditions that need to be met is that a ticket is created and the status is not solved. Now there are a lot of options to choose from when it comes to like these individual conditions. So as you can see, there's like a whole list of, group, priority, assignee, and then same thing with the next condition. There's like is not, and then for this particular one, created and updated for ticket. For status, same thing. There are different things you can choose from, especially when it comes to ticket status. There's like less than, greater than, change to, change from, not changed, change to, and not changed from. So they give you a lot of different options to kind of narrow down exactly what you want the trigger to do. So kind of the same thing with, these are the different statuses that you have on a ticket. So the any conditions are basically the all conditions need to be met first, and then it comes down to the any conditions. And these can be a little bit more lenient. Basically, you have the exact same thing as the ones you do above. So you have status, you have, priority, group, assignee, etc., etc. And so you can put these as basically these can happen or these could happen. All right, so the next part is the action. So this is kind of where the system has satisfied the conditions. So for this particular one, the all conditions were met and then the any conditions were met. So now the system knows that it's time to have some sort of action occur. Now these also have a lot of different options that you can choose from. This particular one's kind of useful. So for the notify requester of a received request, you have the action is email user, and then you can choose who it is. So you can be the current user, so that's the person who either sent in the ticket or the one who's currently working on a ticket, requester, who is the person who requested it, so the person who sent in the email, the assignee, who is your agent who has claimed the tickets, and all non-restricted agents are something like light agents and things of these nature. You can also do email contacts, and that's the one that you see down here. So I'm already set up in the system, and that's why my name has appeared there. Now, when you click email user, it's going to show you this entire basically action box. And there'll be different action boxes based on whichever ones that you choose. One of the first things you might see and might recognize or might be like, what exactly is that, are these placeholders. So if you click here, you can see all the available placeholders. And they might be asking you a question, what are these for? So when a requester sends in a ticket, usually there's a subject line. And that's kind of like where this ticket title comes in. There are a bunch of different placeholders that you can go through. I'm not going to go through the entire list, but you can pull things like status, priority, ticket type, group name, assignee's email, and there's kind of a description for each one of these, so it helps you out a lot. And what you basically use this for is a way to take ticket information that is already on the ticket and then push that into the email that you want to send out to the person. So you can put whatever you want here in the email body. The default basically says that your request, and then it gives the ticket ID, has been received and is being reviewed by our support staff. To add additional comments, reply to this email, and then it puts the ticket comments formatted in there already. So those would be like any sort of responses that have gone back and forth will be dropped into this email. Now, like I said before, there's a bunch of different ones that you can do, and it doesn't necessarily have to be email. Let's say that you have a new request that comes in, and let's say that it's for widgets. If you wanted to add tags or set tags, you could do that. You could remove tags. Let's say that a ticket comes in and you want that to go to like HR, or you want it to go to a particular manager. You can add them as CC when certain conditions are met. One thing that I would like to kind of point out, and this is something that took me a while to learn myself, is that set tags and add tags are two very different things. So when it comes to set tags will remove all tags from your line and only put in the tags that you have there. So if you, let's say, have another trigger that adds a tag to it, set tags will actually delete all those tags that have been added and just put the one that you set in the action. Add tags is the one where you can just additionally add on tag after tag after tag. Remove tags is kind of self-explanatory. It'll remove any tags that you want from the ticket. We've gone over add CCC, email user, email group. So in Zendesk, you can create groups of support staff. And that's kind of like what you see here. You see the assigned group, and then you see support group. And then tweet requester. This is kind of those situations where if you're like hooked into Twitter, you can actually get back to the person who had the question. So the rest of these kind of explanatory, or self-explanatory, sorry. Status, priority, type, group, and assignee. I think that the most interesting parts and things that you can do is you can get kind of tricky with your actions. You can do a number of things that help you automate the system. And kind of like while we're on the topic of automations, let me go ahead and explain those real quick, because automations are very different from triggers. So to get to automations, come over here to automations, click on automations, and it'll show you the automations. So right now there's only one automation in this Zendesk. And essentially an automation is very different from a trigger, because for triggers, we had those conditions of all and any. And when those two conditions are met, the trigger will fire. With automations are different because they happen every hour. And depending on your Zendesk, it's not always necessarily the, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. It can be, 12:03, 12:05. It really depends on what the system assigns you to. So there's not a lot of choice when it comes to automations. It just, for you need to know that it happens once every hour. So looking at the automations that are set up, kind of the default one that comes with every Zendesk is this one: close ticket 4 days after status is set to solve. Basically what happens is when your tickets are solved, they're not necessarily closed yet. You might have noticed that in your Zendesk that you might have a lot of closed tickets, and then over time they eventually are set to close. Close is an automatic action by Zendesk. You can't ever set a ticket to close. So let's go ahead and take a look at this particular automation. Now going into automations, you're going to notice that it is kind of looks a little different from triggers, but it's basically the same conditions. You have your all conditions and you have your any conditions. So taking a look at this particular one, you're going to notice too that there are going to be a lot more of these ticket specific choices that you can make, and you can kind of go through these and mess around with them. All of them are pretty self-explanatory. Looking at this particular one that it has set up, in order to achieve the close after 4 days, it's looking up ticket hours since solved, and if it's greater than 96, which is throwing back to the hours, and after 96 hours, it's going to fire off this particular automation. So like I said, it's going through all of your tickets hour by hour, checking to see whether or not that these all conditions are being met. When they are met, it then performs these actions. So for this particular one, the only action that is set up is the ticket status set to close. So this is your automations. This little drop down right here gives you a couple of options on whether to update. So if you make any changes, you can update it. If you want to deactivate it, or if you want to delete it, these are all can be done with this small box over here. And while we're kind of like looking at that, let's go back to triggers real quick. Let's go ahead and click on another trigger so you can take a look and see. I just want to talk about it real quick. You also have this option, over here. They kind of move things around, but you have active and inactive. So if I click on these three dots over here, it gives me a couple of choices. One of them is edit, so that is the same action as clicking on it. It'll take you into the details of the ticket. The other one is to clone it. Clone becomes really helpful when you have a lot of triggers that you're trying to set up. So like, let's say that you are setting up multiple Zendesks. Clone becomes like your favorite tool because you don't have to keep setting up the same triggers over and over. You can start from like a template. Something else that I should mention, it's kind of been brought up by this, move to first position, move to last position. Over time, like when you start having a lot of triggers, you're going to notice that maybe for whatever reason, a trigger didn't fire or something weird happened. This actually might be the culprit sometimes. So let's say that you have a trigger that sets things to open. Anytime a requester sends in a request, it sets that request to open. Well, if you have a trigger that is in the first position, and for whatever reason, you have, instead of setting it to open, you have it set to pending, well, it's going to go through this list first and give the priority to whatever one that happens last. So if you have your open here, and that's your ultimate goal, but then the next one you have is pending for the ticket status, it's going to end up pending because it goes through these one by one. So it allows you to select those positions and move them around however you want. Let's go ahead and deactivate it real quick. So we're going to deactivate notify requester of received request. It's going to give you this little notification. Trigger contains notifications, which means that your email notifications aren't going to work anymore if you just deactivate it. So this is a newer edition. Kind of gives you a heads up before you do something silly. But we're going to go ahead and deactivate it just to show you where these end up. So if you deactivate it, you're going to notice it's no longer on your list. You come over here to inactive. There you go. So you're going to see that there's actually two in here. One of the ones last updated was the one we did today. Notify requester of received request. We can actually push it back over. So you'll see that it kind of gives you a couple more options. We'll just go ahead and click activate and bring it right back on over. So you're seeing that it's no longer here. It's going to be back in your active list. Now, the last thing you can do if you end up with a lot of different triggers, they do have the search function where you can just type in, assignment and then search, and it's going to kind of show you all the ones with those names. But basically, that's your triggers. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments. I'll try to answer as much as I can, and hopefully in the near future, I'll be able to post more videos like this and get more into the detail and kind of show you exactly, what it's like when triggers fire. So my name is Eugene Gravel. Thank you for watching. If you can go ahead and hit that thumbs up button or the like or leave a comment, I really do appreciate it. And I hope you have a great day. Take care. Bye.